Good evening. Welcome into State of the Tigers, our weekly podcast, live show, whatever you want to call it, here on PowerMizzou.com. Brought to you as it is every single week by James Carlton, State Farm Insurance. Before we get to our bevy of guests tonight, Drew King going to be up first talking Mizzou basketball. We want to remind you about our friend James Carlton at State Farm in Webster Groves, Missouri, carltoninsurance.net. Phone number is 314-961-4800. James's information is going to be scrolling across the bottom of the screen if you're with us on YouTube throughout the show, so you can always reference that. Highly recommend you get in touch with James. He wants to be your insurance agent, like he is Drew King's insurance agent. He wants to also help you out with, or help Mizzou out with its NIL efforts by becoming your insurance agent, or at least giving you a quote. If you get in touch with James, he'll give you some details on how that can be done through working with him. Want to invite you, comments, questions, whatever you've got throughout the night, throw them up on the comment section there. This is going to be a little bit longer show because we've got three people joining me tonight, the first of whom is Drew King. Drew, this is the only podcast which will inform you that John Rothstein is not a real Twitter account, and Hunter Dickinson is indeed expected to play basketball against the Missouri Tigers on Saturday.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to find that out the hard way, Gabe. But
yeah, it got me for about 15 seconds. It's gotten a lot of people for a lot longer than that. It's a well-executed fake.
It's very good. And, Twitter's getting a little bit better about the fakes, but it's nice to know that, there's still a couple out there that are still just realistic enough.
I mean, every time I see somebody going in the portal, I have to check like 12 times if it's real or not. Because this is tough. The world we live in. But, unfortunately, I think for Missouri, that was a fake tweet. I would feel a little bit better about this thing if Hunter Dickinson indeed was not playing on Saturday. Mm-hmm. He strikes me as a bit of a matchup problem for Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing my preview as we speak, and I've got my 3 keys to the game. Number 1, you have to bottle up Hunter Dickinson. Like, he is their go-to option on offense and a really good defender on the other end. The one game that Kansas has lost this year, Hunter Dickinson got held to 13 points, and it was because Marquette's Oso Ighodaro was not letting him catch the ball, right? He was fronting him in the post. He was guarding him really tight on the perimeter. I think Hunter Dickinson only got 3 shots off in the second half. And so that's kind of what Mizzou has to do to be in this game is be able to contain Hunter Dickinson as much as they can with the collection of bigs that they have.
Yeah, so if I set the over-under, and want to shout out Freeway Jared for the super chat, aka Silvio De Sousa inducement payment. Hey man, A, it's legal now. B, everybody should have been doing what Kansas did the last few years, obviously. But back to the point. If I set the over-under on Hunter Dickinson points at 20, you take which?
I mean, I would take the over because he's averaging over 20 points a game. But if you want a chance to win the game, like, Missouri has to hit the under there, I think.
If I set the over-under on, maybe more importantly, Hunter Dickinson rebounds at 20, which one do you take?
I'll take the under. I think that Missouri's gotten a little bit better on that end.
I would take the over.
20.
Like, a lot of rebounds. I'm not kidding. I think 2020 is like the mark where if Missouri keeps him under that, they've got a shot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just think 20 is like an astronomical amount of rebounds.
I know. I'm just saying. Before we get kind of further into some of the other guys on the court and this game and all that, you were over talking to Dennis Gates and Nick Honor today. What did Dennis have to say, whether it was about Dickinson, about anything else that stood out to you? And I say that fully knowing that Dennis doesn't tend to say a lot that necessarily stands out at these weekly press conferences.
No, so he did get asked about Dickinson, didn't have a whole lot to say other than he's an All-American, he's a dominant post player, he's a guy that, will be attentive to, but he's not the whole team, But kind of my main takeaway from the press conference today was like it kind of I was hit with the realization that Mizzou seems like a lot more prepared for what they're heading into this year. I feel like
Yeah.
right last year with it being Dennis Gates's first time going into the border war and as well as like several players. I went back and found a quote from last year from Dennis. He said, I think when it comes down to what this place can be on game day, we'll all have to see it, right? Like he really
Mhm.
didn't have a great understanding of what that kind of atmosphere was going to be like and how much that Kansas was wanting that win. And so this year, Dennis knows what to expect. All the returners, Nick, Sean, Noah, Aiden, they all know that Kansas is going to bring a different level of energy. But then you've also got guys like Caleb Grill and Tamar Bates who have played at Allen Fieldhouse before, right? So they know what that kind of environment's going to be like. So I think that they're not going to get caught off guard at least this year, right? They kind of know that, okay, we have to be on our A game to be competitive in this one.
Yeah. And I've got some thoughts on that. I'll get to in just a minute, but we've got to bring this up first. Freeway Jared says, I kind of want to see a fight. I told Drew in the pre-show meeting, if I'm Dennis Gates, I tell Caleb Grill before this game, the main thing I want out of you in this game is to get Hunter Dickinson to throw a punch. Like, I'm not even really kidding about that. Like, look, those are two guys that have shown a propensity for running a little hot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hunter got a T in their last game. We all know Caleb Grill won the Minnesota game by getting thrown out. So I still laugh when I say that. I can't say it with a straight face, but like I'm fine. If they're in there, if they look, Connor Vanover, you got 5 fouls. Jordan Butler, you got 5 fouls. Mabor Majak, you got 5 fouls. Like I'm fine with all of it. If you can get him, running hot like you did, absolutely. And I would never. It is not in my nature to encourage
Mm-hmm.
seeing a fight, but I wouldn't hate it if we saw a fight.
Well, I mean, like I said, one of the big keys to the game is to bottle Hunter Dickinson up, keep his shot total low. That's one way to do it. But again, like I'm not gonna say like, yeah, they need to start a fight with Hunter Dickinson though. That's
No, they
right,
shouldn't start the fight. They should
right.
make him start the fight.
Sure,
There's a difference here. You got to be crafty about these things.
sure, okay.
Like you don't just go up and punch him. You just
Mhm.
you get
Get
him
under
to
his
punch
skin
you. Yeah, you
just
get him to
enough.
punch you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
I mean,
sense.
I mean, I think it's a good suggestion. Freeway Jared obviously thinks it's a good suggestion. I don't expect Dennis Gates to employ this, to be quite honest. One other thing, real quick: T-Rise wants to bet a year subscription that Dickinson is under 2020. But people propose these bets to me.
Mhm.
Like, what do I get out of this? What if I'm
Yeah.
right? I get a free year. Like, I already have a free year.
Yeah, Treese, let us know what you're willing to wager on this bet.
Right, right.
And then we can set something up.
I appreciate not only the super chats, but they're coming with stipulations. Andrew giving us some money for the Caleb Grill medical bill fund after that fight. So there you go, Andrew. Appreciate it. But no, I want to get back to what you were talking about. Them kind of knowing what the atmosphere is and all that. And I do think, I mean, I remember saying last year that I wasn't sure that even Dennis Gates and Charlton Young and those guys knew exactly what they were getting into in that game. Because look, I'd seen a lot of MUKU games and I knew there had been 10 years of buildup for this. And I kind of, I don't think honestly they were quite ready for it. Now I think part of that was also their talent wasn't there, but KU had some guys that had played in some games like that, and Missouri didn't. Now, I agree they'll be more prepared for it. I'm not sure they can be completely prepared for it. And you're talking about Grill and Tamar have played in Allen, and I get that. But Indiana and Allen Fieldhouse is not Mizzou and Allen Fieldhouse. Iowa State and Allen Fieldhouse is not Mizzou and Allen Fieldhouse. And here is my biggest hesitation on this game in Lawrence. No matter what Bill Self says, no matter what Kansas fans say, this one is different for them. Like, they are not going to get half speed Kansas. They're not going to get dick around with Eastern Illinois, Kansas. They are going to get Kansas ready for a game where Kansas wants to. Like, I have seen a ton of Mizzou Kansas games in Allen Fieldhouse, and outside of the first half in 2012, I'm not sure I've ever seen them play poorly. And I don't even know if Kansas played poorly in that one. Missouri just played one of the best halves of basketball I've ever seen. My point is, when other teams go in there, you might get them every now and then because they don't. It's not the level of seriousness that this one is. And I just think if Missouri's going to go in there and shock everybody, like, they're going to do it by playing the game of their lives, because I do not expect Kansas to be off.
Yeah, I mean, DeJuan Harris had a quote today, it just saying the quiet part out loud. We want to beat them by a lot. Yeah. That was the quote. And like, you don't hear players say that very often, right? You'll hear them say, like, yeah, we're going to be prepared. We're going to, give it our best. No, they want to win this game by a lot.
By a lot. Yeah.
And they're going to do whatever they can to accomplish that. But, I think it goes back to not only Hunter Dickinson, but for Mizzou to win this game, it has to be on the defensive end. You look at the past 2 years that they've played them, Kansas has had over 100 points, over 90
Kansas
points.
ran a layup line last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all they did, they never turned the ball over in the backcourt. And once they got to the front court, it was just a layup line.
And so that kind of goes to my second point, which is that for Mizzou to win this game, you have to stop Hunter Dickinson, but you also have to keep up the ball pressure that they've been playing with over these past 4 games. That Marquette loss, not only did Hunter Dickinson not have a lot of shot attempts, but Kansas also had 18 turnovers, and they haven't had more than 15 in any other game. And so, like, you've got DeJuan Harris, who's a great passer. Kevin McCullough has been an elite passer this year, but they're also, like, not especially good at taking care of the ball, right? They can get a little bit risky with it. And so I think that's something that for Mizzou to be in this game, that's something that they're going to have to exploit.
DeJuan Harris is the next guy I wanted to bring up because, look, he's frankly been the reason Kansas is. I mean, 2 years ago in Lawrence, he all of a sudden became a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And he's a Columbia kid. He's the only person in this thing who really gets what this thing is. And he plays like it. Like, he just, you watch DeJuan Harris in every other game, he don't even look like he wants to shoot. And then Missouri shows up and he's like, you give it to me, I'm a 70% 3-point shooter. It's crazy, but that's what it takes. Like, it is going to have to take, I think, 2, maybe even 3 guys on Missouri having, like, out of body efforts that we haven't seen out of them to go win this game.
Yeah, and Nick Honor got asked about, what it's like to go up against DeJuan Harris today, and he's like, yeah, well, he's a great passer. We're going to have to cut off his field of vision. And I'm like, well, how do you do that? For somebody that has such high level vision. Yeah. Like, I'm not completely sure how you do that. But I think it just goes back to, like, and this is another thing too, Gabe, like, Kansas doesn't love taking threes. They don't take that many per game, but they've made a whole lot of them this year. I think they're shooting like above 40% against D1 teams, because they had that one game against Chaminade or whatever it's called. But yeah, like, so they don't necessarily have to take a ton of threes because they find the open man and almost always knock it down. So that, like, it's a really, really tall task, and they just give you so many different problems that that's why they're 8-1 right now with their one loss,
number 2 in the country. Yeah.
Coming against Marquette. Like, it's just a lot of stuff that you have to give attention to.
I think there's a couple things that are interesting about this. The build up to last year's game with Missouri 9-0, it being the first home game in 10 years, like, it was too much. I think it was too much for the team to handle. There's not that buildup this year. I mean, Missouri and Kansas are playing basketball on Saturday, and like most Missouri fans aren't really talking about it, because it's 10-2 football in the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State with the portal going crazy and all that. So I actually think that is beneficial for Missouri. I think there's a little less of a spotlight on this one. Look, I think last year Missouri fans, and I don't blame them because of where Missouri was, got their hopes up a little going into that game. And I don't think the hopes are up this year. So I think Missouri actually really kind of does go into this one with really not much pressure. I mean, hey, if you go and they beat you by a lot, like DeJuan Harris said, that's kind of what you expect, or kind of what a lot of people expect. And Jason wants to know, and this kind of feeds into the no pressure. Would winning this game erase beating Jackson State or losing to Jackson State? I'll say yes.
100% it would. Yeah. Because this is, like I said before, you're looking for a game that can make up for that loss. And we said, going 2-1 in this stretch would probably be enough. Going 3-0, I wrote this in my column today. If you go 3-0 in the next 3 games, like, you got to consider, like, Mizzou's probably a lock to make the tournament at that point, considering like the quality of opponent they just went up against in the non-conference.
Right. By the way, I saw Pitt went on the road and got an ACC win somewhere last night.
West Virginia.
So yeah. So not an ACC win, but a Power 5 win. So
yeah.
So that's helpful. But yeah, I agree.
Same with Minnesota. Minnesota beat Nebraska at home last night. So that ended up being, that's going to be a Q2 win for Mizzou as well.
And there you go. So it's looking up. I think you go into this one, just, I don't know, get us to under 8 in the second half with the chance. Right. If you do that, like, you'll take whatever happens after that. And by the way, I will tell you what happens after that is it becomes 8-on-5, because I've seen games in that building. And I know it's going to happen.
I believe it. Actually, Dennis Gates said something very similar in the press conference today. He said, I just want a chance to win the game with the last possession. Right. That's where I want our team to be in this one. And I think, like, that's not a completely unrealistic goal, but like you said, like, if it's 8 points with 5 minutes left, it's going to be pretty tough to close.
I mean, if Missouri's up 8 points with 5 minutes left, it's going to be pretty tough to close, because Kansas will shoot 14 free throws.
Yeah. Well, and
it's just honest.
Nick Honor,
I'm not. You know me. I'm not a blame the refs guy. But
no,
the building's different, man.
Nick Honor talked today about how Dennis Gates has tried to, implement some hectic environments in practice during scrimmages and stuff like that. He said, like, Dennis will, Gates, coach, will ref our scrimmages, and like, he'll intentionally make some no calls. He'll intentionally get some stuff wrong, just so, like, we get used to that, because we know not a whole lot of whistles are going to go our way at the Fog. So, and on top of that too, I think part of the schedule building this year, they've had a taste of playing on the road, which they didn't really have a whole lot of, like you said, big challenges heading into the Kansas game last year. This year, they've played high major teams. They've played in hostile environments. So I do think they're going to be a little bit more prepared. I think there's, like you said, less pressure in this one. They don't have a whole lot to lose. So yeah, I think that it could be a competitive game, which would be a pretty big step forward compared to the last 2 times out.
So we've got one question from Kyle that I'm going to get to in a minute, but I just want to kind of quickly look. You came into Missouri, Kansas last year not knowing a ton about it. Obviously, had never seen a game, all that. So kind of, obviously everybody watching this, I've seen, I don't know, I've probably seen 50 games between Missouri and Kansas. These people have some of them have seen more. Just what was your impression of last year, and did it give you more of an appreciation for what this rivalry is than you had before it?
For sure. I just remember I couldn't hear myself think at all, right? Like
Yeah.
it was nonstop. I remember like we were sitting in our media section probably an hour or so before the game, and they opened the doors for the Antlers to come in, right? And the student section filled up immediately. So that was kind of my first taste of like, oh, this kind of means more than your typical Missouri basketball game. And I was looking at Kansas's attendance numbers because I remember last year it was a sellout, 15,000 people, and Allen Fieldhouse has 16,000 people, right? So like it's going to be a little bit louder than it was last year. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this game because I know like it's just higher stakes than your typical December basketball game. It's so much fun.
So I know that you're a couple years younger than me. I
Mhm.
am curious if you know the history of why it is honestly hilarious that Kansas is retiring Thomas Robinson's number during this game,
I
or if
saw
you are
you.
familiar with Thomas Robinson.
So I'm familiar with Thomas Robinson's NBA career more than I am his college
Well,
career.
well, then you are in a very small minority there, I think, because most people are not. But okay, so I'm just going to tell you when your segment here ends, I just want you to go on YouTube and find
Mhm.
Thomas Robinson, Phil Pressey, 2012, and understand that what happened in those 5 seconds determined a game, determined a conference champion, and determined a number one seed in the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
You can form your own opinions from there. Last thing, we
Sounds
got
good.
Jarod in the green room, but want to get to this from Kyle. He had asked this a while ago. Are we on Aaron Rowe watch, or is it just a gut feeling at the moment? I would say, like, I don't expect anything to happen immediately. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we're getting this in the next few days. But I will also say that after Drew put in his prediction, we've seen some other people put in some predictions. You know, I think we're all kind of thinking this is a thing that happens at some point, just don't know exactly when.
Yeah, and to just add to that, like I was leaning toward putting the prediction in possibly before the visit because of like how good kind of the feeling was between Aaron Rowe and Mizzou. So, and by all accounts, the visit went pretty well. So, yeah, I think that, like you said, it's not necessarily going to be an immediate thing. There's no rush because he's a 2025 kid, but that's kind of the way I think it's leaning at the moment.
For sure. So, all right, Drew, appreciate it, man. We're gonna let you roll, and plenty of stuff coming Saturday from Lawrence. We are headed over
Mhm.
there in on Saturday morning. So appreciate you. We are going to switch gears now and bring in Jarod Hamilton. Going to talk a little Mizzou football, a little bit of transfer portal. Jarod, I think you are on mute if that icon is correct. So just there you
There we
go.
go.
Now we're set. All right, so I don't know, bowl game, all that. Like, we're a long way away from that. But portal season, we're 3 days into it. It's been maybe a little bit quieter, at least until last night, than I think we thought it might be right at the jump.
Yeah, I'd say so. But in a way, it doesn't surprise me when I think about it. It's a good team. They've got something to focus on, which is obviously the bowl game. Um, I was more so thinking about opt outs and transfers going out more so than coming in just so early on in December. So yeah, it's been a little bit quiet. And then like you probably said that maybe a few hours before Torian Pride committed. It's just like, man, I don't know if it's me. I was just like, okay, I thought I was tripping, but yeah, it's been a little bit quiet. But I mean, I expected to pick up uh, definitely, maybe a week, next week or so, things might start.
Yeah, I'd say they're going to have some visitors in. We've already posted a couple of those this weekend. Got a running back coming, got a defensive tackle coming. The weird thing about the transfer portal is it just, like, what's true right now might not be true in 12 hours when we put the chamber together. I mean, it changes so fast with these kids. NIL and just visits and a lot of these kids go into the portal and tweet out 17 offers, but they really already know where they're going. Kind of like we saw with Toriano last night. Like, there was no process. Toriano Pride said he was going in the portal last week. He went in the portal Monday, and Wednesday night he committed to Missouri. That was, I mean, there wasn't anything that was going to change that happening. It was just a matter of when he wanted to say it.
Right. I got a question for you. So how often, do you feel like that happens to Missouri specifically, where, guys go into the portal and they instantly kind of know, like they put what did they have? Like the do not contact thing?
Do not
how
contact.
Does that happen?
I wouldn't say it's super common. I'd have to go back and like there were guys that, like Tyron Hopper, I remember his name. We just kind of started hearing pretty quick when he went into the portal a couple of years ago, and it ended up happening. And now it wasn't quite like Pride was, where he was a St. Louis kid and like all you had to really do was connect the dots and played high school ball with Luther and all that. But I think the big time kids, I think more than half of them, if they don't know where they're going, I think they have a list of like 3 or 4 schools that they know they're going to go to one of them. And I don't think most lists are much bigger than that. So I think the focus for Missouri fans is running back in the portal. So right now we know Rocket Sanders is in there. We know Trevor Etienne is in there. I finally figured out which one's Trevor and which one's Travis.
Oh my goodness.
I'm real proud of myself for that. And then we know Marcus Carroll from Georgia State is visiting this weekend. So those are kind of the 3 names there right now. Just curious, like if those are the 3, like, do you have an opinion on, hey, which one you would like, what order you'd prioritize these guys in?
I like Rocket and Trevor for different reasons. But I probably put Trevor first, then I'll put Rocket and then the third guy Carroll. Just because he's such a dynamic guy out of the backfield. Also, when I was reading, I didn't realize this. I felt like he's a little bit bigger than I thought, but he's around Cody Schrader's height and his size in a way, if you look at ET and stature. So, I mean, it's another guy. And then Rocket, with injury concerns, that's more so the thing for me that kind of knocks him down a notch. I mean, boy, what is he, like 6'2", 215, 225?
Well, he's supposed to be 215. Most people have him listed around 240 this past year and think maybe that's a contributing factor.
Now, I wonder, did he come out of camp like that, or was that something? Because, when you injured, like, I was just wondering, maybe injuries kind of just sitting around. I don't know how that happens, but I'll probably go Etienne. He's someone who can catch the ball in the backfield and make plays. We saw that versus Missouri this year. He'll probably be the first guy.
Yeah, I would go Etienne first. I think I actually might put Carroll above Rocket Sanders, only because his 1,300-yard season was this year, and we're a year removed from Rocket having that year. But now Rockets was in the SEC, Carroll's was in the Sun Belt, so obviously there's a difference. But I think both of us walked out of that game against Florida going, oh man, Trevor Etienne and Montreal Johnson, those are some dudes, like, just unbelievably impressive. And then there was a third guy whose name I'm forgetting, Eugene Wilson for Florida. Like, I think we walked out and all 3 of those guys were like, dude, I would put those guys on any offense in the country. Yeah,
super, super fast team. And we just kept, I feel like the thing I remember from the Florida game was we just kept saying, how are these guys, like, at the time 5-5, or they were 5-6 that night, but how are they not better considering the athletes they got? Florida is really known for putting out those kind of, track star guys. So I got all these dynamic athletes and they're not winning games. It's kind of confusing, but yeah, they got some guys over there.
All right, so we'll talk Toriano Pride for just a minute. Marcus Aurelius wants to know. I mean, I assume that's not the original Marcus Aurelius, but like the screen name nonetheless. What's up with the kid they got from Clemson? I mean, look, I look at Toriano Pride, and the clear expectation is you come in and you start at cornerback opposite Drayden Norwood next year.
Yep, it's pretty much it. That's straight to the point. He's gonna start. Who else do they got? They got Marcus Clark coming back. Shamar McNeil, Deloach.
Could go after another transfer. I wouldn't rule out
Yeah.
taking a second corner.
Right. And they also got Cameron Keys coming in, the 3-star guy out of Florida. So yeah, they got some guys. Would you take another one? I think I would.
I think it depends on who it is.
Yeah, I was about to say if you think they can be better than Norwood, or if you think they could replace Norwood's spot as the number 3 guy.
Or if you have a situation where you like a guy as like a slot corner, if there's a specific type of player that fits that, or if somebody hits the portal and you look at him and go, and he expresses interest, and you go, well, he's just too good to say no to. I wouldn't take. I don't think they have to have a corner, but I think if the right guy's there, you take it.
Definitely. More I think about it, just think about how clutch it's been having Drayden Norwood as that number 3 guy, though. And this isn't something
was banged up.
Right. And Drink said this at SEC Media Days, as far as like, basically, he's like, I'm real confident to have, Drayden Norwood. So if, a KAD or Ennis cannot play, I got somebody that I can just basically plug and play, and then they can go from there. And that's what ended up happening. I think it'd be good if they had a third guy. Marcus Clark really stepped up this year, but I wonder if they want someone just a little bit better than him that they could use in that role.
Yeah, or worst case scenario, just to provide competition, right? I mean, Hey, bring a guy in. We got 4 guys we feel like can start. The 2 best of them are going to go start. I never think that is a bad thing. We'll kind of go in depth tomorrow morning on the rest of the portal stuff, but offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, running back. I mean, it's kind of just line of scrimmage and just behind the line of scrimmage. That's could take a receiver. Don't know that they have to, but could take a safety if Joseph Charleston ends up leaving. I'm kind of the opinion, like Jalen Carlisle, I just expect him to go. I don't really know that, but that's just my opinion at this point.
Yeah, it feels like he has to leave before, in a way, it kind of turns into like it's not too late because these guys are young, but I don't know. Sometimes there's something to be had about having that potential, and then you go into the NFL and they feel like, all right, this is what we can work on. Right. If you're too far in, they may feel like, I don't know if this player, if we can, figure some stuff out.
Because everybody always looks at an extra year and says, well, he can come back and improve on this and improve on this. And while that's true, every game also gives NFL scouts one more game to kind of pick you apart and find things they don't love.
Yeah, I think when you think about a season, I think he got better as the season went on, though. But it wasn't. It felt like last year's in a way. Like I don't know. 2 years ago, it seemed like it was much better.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Ross is asking about Courtney Crutchfield. He's a Pine Bluff, Arkansas receiver. Put a note on the message board today. We expect him to get an in-home visit from Missouri in the next few days, to take an official visit to Missouri before signing day. So I don't know if that means he's signing with Missouri, but Missouri very much is still in it. Okay. All right. I was about to hit this question, and I'm going to go ahead and put it up, but I just read it, and I just want you to read it and get your reaction. You can see that on the screen, right?
Okay. Question here. Let's say we beat Ohio State, but next couple of years we go sub 500. Will Coach Drink be on the hot seat? Wow. I mean, he just won Coach of the Year.
They're 10-2. He's the SEC Coach of the Year. They're going to the Cotton Bowl to play Ohio State. Why are we thinking about when he might be on the hot seat?
I don't know. That's self-sabotage. That's I'm toxic.
Telling you, don't ever look up, because the light at the end of the tunnel might be an oncoming train. Like, it's a bad way to go through life, man.
Oh man. Maybe he wasn't high on drink, and he's like, I gotta be right, so I'm gonna spend the block.
Sam, I'm not trying to pick on you, man, but I was about to ask. I just saw it started. Let's say we beat Ohio State, and I was about to hit add, and I read it. I don't know, man. I mean, yes, every coach in college football is a year away from being on the hot seat. Almost. Right. I mean, Kirby Smart's not, Nick Saban's not, but like, Ryan Day is 50-7. And if he doesn't beat Michigan next year, he might get fired. Like, that's where we're at in college football, man. Read a story, speaking of Ohio State, I want to get your reaction to this one too. Read a story from our Ohio State site, dotting the I's. They do a good job up there. Talked to Marvin Harrison today. Marvin Harrison has not ruled out returning for next year. What say you?
Cap. I mean, money talks. Money talks. So he's been projected to be the lowest I seen actually today was 3rd overall. For a lot of time, I've seen him either 1st or 2nd overall. So you're talking about being a top 3 pick, and your reason for not going to the draft is because you want to beat Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Like, it sounds good. That's good for the fan base to hear.
That's the thing you say for the fans.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't know. Also, your dad being a Hall of Fame receiver, you think he's gonna say, you know what, go back to school? He's gonna say, nah, you got to cash in right now.
If Marvin Harrison plays for Ohio State next year, someone should commit him to an asylum. It is an absolutely. I'll go a step further. If Marvin Harrison plays against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, someone should check his faculties.
He shouldn't play in the Cotton Bowl. But when I first read the comment, I was thinking, oh, okay, well, he's saying this, like, I don't know, is he going to play? But I was just thinking, well, this is kind of separate from this. If he wants to play in the Cotton Bowl, I would actually appreciate it because guys don't do that no more.
It'd be fun to see him.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see, but he shouldn't play. Also, I think this is one of those things like I was watching something about John Calipari last year and having DeJuan Wagner, and he had him his freshman year or whatever, and he was like, I'm trying to come back or something. He was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
He forced him to the league.
That actually happened with Jeremy Maclin here. After Jeremy's redshirt sophomore year, like, he was really torn. He really kind of wanted to come back, and Gary Pinkel told him, you can't, man. You just can't. Chase Daniel's gone. It's going to be different. You've got to go. You're a first-round pick. You've got to go be a first-round pick. And you know, so that's what'll happen. Let's get to some of these guys' questions because I still got an interview with Clint Cosgrove that I recorded, and I don't want to keep everybody here for 2 hours tonight. Some of you might enjoy it. Jarod wouldn't. I probably wouldn't. Jason wants to know, do you expect any more names from Mizzou to enter the portal, or is it closed after the bowl game? So it remains open until January 2nd.
Second? Wait, second or second?
Second, too.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. There will be more guys enter the portal. I don't know if it will happen before the bowl game or after the bowl game, but more guys from Missouri, they have to enter the portal. If Missouri's going to add all the guys that they're talking about adding,
got to clear space.
Like 5 or 6 more guys have to go.
All right. And we've been saying this for a couple of weeks. You just think about the roster and some of the guys who haven't really seen the field in the past year or two. You can kind of make some assumptions of players who possibly may.
It would make sense.
That doesn't mean they will, but you can understand guys want to play. So,
and you can't rule out guys that have played some. Go ahead and enter the transfer portal. Maybe they're looking for a different scenario. Look, I'll tell you this. Here's what's going on across the country these couple weeks. Dudes are going to their coaches and saying, all right, I need a better NIL deal than I had last year. And some of them are getting them, some of them aren't. The guys that aren't are probably entering the portal. Even some of the guys that are, they get that new NIL offer. You know what they're doing? Their agents stuff are making calls going, all right, here's what I got to stay. What can you do for me? It's 100% happening. Like, you can pretend it's not happening. Maybe we're not supposed to talk about it happening, but it's absolutely happening with guys on every roster in America.
Is that that's probably what's happened with DJ Uiagalelei? Is that the Oregon State? That's the Oregon State guy who jumped into the portal, and that was kind of mind-boggling to me. I mean, maybe because Oregon State's going to be in the Mountain West for a year or two or whatever that pact is, but I was just thinking, like, you got a good deal going on up there, and he's only been there a year and he's out. Yeah.
Right. And who knows, he may go back, but by putting his name in the portal, he can go get offers. And he can come back to Oregon State and say, all right, well, they said $500,000. What do you got? You know, like the running back at Boise, I'm forgetting his name, but top 5 running back in the country. And like, I've been hearing his name rumored maybe entering the portal for a month now. And then he put out a statement that said, hey, I'm back for another year at Boise. Well, you don't got to be a genius to figure out why that is. And a reporter from Boise put out, he said Reports already got 300 grand, and good for him. But like, that is the process, guys. Most people aren't going to say it out loud, but that's what's going on here. And that's why you can't guarantee that anybody, like, look, I'm pretty sure Brady Cook is staying at Missouri, right? So there are some people, but like, who knows, man? And I'm not going to put a name on it because I feel like that'd be a disservice because I don't know a name. I'm just saying, just pick a guy that's in the starting lineup. And I promise offers are being made to him. But there are other schools trying to say, hey, we think we can do. And look, Missouri's doing the same thing with people at other schools. This is what this process is in these 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a messy thing, but I think it's
free agency when they aren't really free agent. It's like that. Wasn't it the NBA that put in like a 3-day tampering period or something a couple years ago?
Yeah, there's a I don't know. It's a few days of tampering, which is really the start of free agency. You just
just call it what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I also seen this, and I don't know if this is nationwide or region wide, but I know some guys who cover preps in Oklahoma, and they have some type of transfer thing. And then in Tennessee, where I was working doing preps, I see they're trying to vote on having a one free transfer rule. And it's just like, wow, it's crazy. Free agency done got all the way down to high school.
It's nuts, man. Zachary saying, look for the cornerback from K-State. His name's Will Lee. He committed somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know where it is. I saw it on Twitter yesterday. I mean, he was on Missouri's radar, but they were pretty confident. I think they were getting Toriano Pride. And so I don't think that reached that point. Matt Nussbaum's asking, are there any in-state kids we're looking at flipping? Aeneas Williams, McClellan, even Wingo. Look, I'll just say this now, guys. Missouri's not really recruiting Ryan Wingo. They've moved on. They're done with that situation. Jeremiah McClellan, I know he is liking troll tweets on Twitter. He's very, very unlikely. Aeneas Williams, I haven't heard anything to indicate that. I mean, yes, Missouri would love that. I'm sure if Aeneas Williams said, yeah, I'll take a visit, they would absolutely take him, but I don't know that that's realistic. But the main point there is move on from the Ryan Wingo stuff. Your best chance to get Ryan Wingo's in a year or two if it doesn't work out in Austin for him, to be quite honest. Can the players that transfer actually play for their new team in this year's bowl game? No.
And even if they could, that'd be dangerous. You're putting a kid who doesn't really know, unless it's something like, unless it's something like, maybe kicker, punter, something where you don't have to think too much. You'd be putting that kid at a disadvantage to try to learn plays and all that stuff.
And no, coach, like, can you imagine the revolt in that locker room if Eli
play this guy
went to Marcus Clark and said, sorry, you're out, we're playing Toriano Pride? No chance. Marcus Clark got this team here. Toriano Pride did not. Even if it was to Toriano Pride.
Yeah, even if it wasn't a player playing, just think about, you can be the 8th guy at your position on the depth chart. But if you've been here from, the get-go, from at least fall camp, and then somebody they just got in the portal, they can just put on a jersey, I think you'd be pretty upset to see that.
Yeah. Here's a good one for you. Do you all actually read portal graphics or just skip to the with that being said? Dude, I don't even read that part. Like, I legitimately don't even read that part. I just see a graphic. I'm like, oh, he's in the portal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, Jared. With that being said, yeah, because who was it? When EJ
I guess every now and then they could say, with that being said, I'm coming back for another year, or I'm declaring for the NFL draft.
It's doing way too much. When I see it, I skip to the bottom, because like even EJ, when EJ put out his thing, I didn't notice the middle part about the little snipe at drink. I just was like, oh, okay, he's gone into the portal. So they all say something that seems like, what do I say? Oh, this is what I type up. Oh, okay. And they just kind of copy and paste it.
It's like they come from a template. I'll go a step further. I don't think I've ever watched a full commitment video. I just fast forward to the last 30 seconds and find out where they're committing. The video they put on social media, I'm not trying to watch that. I don't care.
It depends. It depends how long. If it's like a few seconds, it's a little graphic, and I'll do that. If it's more like not something where they're pulling out a shirt, but maybe it's just like some type of video, like animation. That may be cool. But yeah, if it's I'm pulling out the shirts and the hats, yeah, I'm scared.
If it's under a minute, I'll watch it. If it's over a minute, I'm going to the last 30 seconds. That's the cutoff. Let's see. When will Drink get a legit quarterback recruit of his own? I mean, we don't know that Sam Horn's not legit. We know he's not Brady Cook, but that doesn't mean he's not the starter in 2025.
It's true. And then I forgot who I was talking
Jamari
about.
Johnson.
I was about to say. You're talking about his little his flash in that scrimmage at the end of fall camp. There's obviously some stuff to work on, but they seem like, okay, he's got something that, maybe we didn't know about. So we don't know yet if they got a quarterback yet. And we're not going to find out until Brady's gone or, something else happens.
Or until they're forced into. What's Jake Garcia going to do? I mean, look, I don't think he's graduating. I don't think he has much choice what he can do.
Exactly.
I think he's here unless we get some sort of waiver or something like this. So we'll start wrapping this up, but we do have we have got a couple hundred people on here, and we want to get to most of your questions. Marcus Aurelio says, I like Drinkins and X's and O's guy, plus he's easily the best recruiter Mizzou's had in a long time. I figure we will step back a bit next year, but as long as the recruiting keeps up, the wins will come. So I want to focus on that step back a bit next year. I actually disagree. I think Missouri should, and I think this is what they're doing. The next 3 weeks are focused on fill the few holes we think we have, because we got a lot coming back on offense, and the goal should be the 12-team playoff next year. I'm not saying it's a bad year if they don't get there, but I think with a third-year starting quarterback coming back, with, I think, a guy who might be preseason SEC Player of the Year potential on some dark horse Heisman lists in Luther Burden, you got some offensive linemen coming back. I think next year's a go for it year, not a step back year.
I feel the same, but when I read this and when I see step back, first thing I think is like 8-4 or 9-3 step back. Like I didn't think immediately of the playoff, but yeah, they should be trying to go to the playoff. It can't be, back to the 500s or to even 7 wins. I got to see the schedule. Also want to see, how they line up against other teams, but yeah, you should definitely be trying to go forward and plug in the holes. But I feel like a question like this, we got to give me into like the spring or summer with something like this so I can see who they plug and play in those positions.
Yeah, because we don't know what anybody's roster looks like, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
so
3 days ago, I woke up thinking Kyle McCord was going to be the quarterback against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl.
That's crazy.
That's not happening. Yeah. So let's see. If we've got anything else. I think we've covered the vast majority of it, honestly. So I don't know. I do know that I checked today about, possible availability, open practices before the team leaves for Dallas. That is in the plans. We don't know exactly when. So we're hoping we'll have some of that for you guys. Jarod had a kind of a look back at the most influential moments of the season today. I think later this week, you're going to have something kind of looking at big storylines coming up in December before the bowl game. And hey, every day we just wake up and get on Twitter and find out who's transferring now.
It's such a weird period of time because we've been locked into a schedule since pretty much media days. So now we just kind of wait for something to happen. And that's when we do work.
It's almost like you wake up every day and go, okay, there's nothing planned that I'm going to write today, but I know I'm going to end up writing something today.
Exactly. So
yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, the storylines thing, next couple of days, see what the schedule looks like. But yeah, just when we got portal recruiting, there's a lot. Drink said there was a lot of stuff that goes on in December. So now he maybe dodged a bullet, maybe as far as possibly is this coaching assistants. Some of the jobs are starting to fill up.
Yeah, let's finish with that. It kind of seems to me at this point that both coordinators are probably going to be back.
Right.
I mean, I don't see a situation out there really that I think is a threat.
Right, and I mean, if that LSU DC spot is that I haven't heard about it, but
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, honestly. I'm not even sure the guy's actually been fired.
you're right. I'm just saying, do you still even think like that's
I mean, I would at least pay attention to it if it does happen, but like I don't know, sitting here today, I kind of think they're both back.
yeah, and you probably bringing back a good majority of those position coaches, when you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, you never know, right? Especially that stuff usually happens like after the national championship game, maybe after late signing day. So look, it's not impossible that somebody gets an opportunity and leaves, but I think that the big three being Drinkwitz, Moore, and Baker, like right now, I feel pretty good that they're going to be running the show again next year. So, all right, man. Appreciate you hanging out. We're gonna let you go because earlier today I recorded an interview with Clint Cosgrove, and they like him way more than they like you or me. So I'm gonna let people watch it.
I mean, no, I think I like Clint more than I like. No, Clint be dropping some gems. So yeah, y'all go check that out.
All right, Jarod, have a good one, man. We'll talk to you. All right, so real quick before we do get to the interview with Clint Cosgrove, I want to remind you guys one more time. This is State of the Tigers, brought to you by James Carlton, State Farm Insurance, carltoninsurance.net. On the phone at 314-961-4800. You call James's office during business hours, you're going to get a human being. It may not always be James because he seems to spend a lot of his time on the radio with me in St. Louis during business hours, but somebody's going to be in his office. They just want to give you a quote. Give him a call. Give him a shot to be your insurance agent. He's going to talk to you about that, get you the best deal he can. He's also then going to maybe be able to hook up a little Mizzou NIL deal if you give him a call. So like I said, recorded an interview with Clint Cosgrove earlier today. He is, for another 24 hours or so, Rivals.com's Midwest analyst. Wanted to get something done with Clint. Have really gotten to know him well this year, worked with him a lot. I know you guys really like him. He did the Williams Winery Futurecast, was the first one there. He had a lot of great information on Ryan Wingo and Jeremiah McClellan throughout the process. So recorded a conversation with Clint earlier today. So like, if you ask questions, this is not live. He's not going to answer them. I'm not going to answer them. But just watch it, listen to it. However you're taking this in, enjoy it. So here's about 25, 30 minutes with Clint earlier today. Then I'll come back and wrap it up. All right. So the guy on the other side of your screen is the most requested podcast guest we have. And I think the only person who's ever actually asked to be on this podcast. Everybody else, we have to say, hey, man, will you do a podcast? Clint's just out here tweeting and being like, hey, I probably should do a podcast. So that is Clint Cosgrove. Wanted to make sure to get him on this week as we don't know what the opportunity to do that will be going forward. What's up, Clint? How you doing, man?
I'm fired up to be here, man. Yeah, I was tweeting. I was begging. I didn't just want to be on it. Like, this was a destination for me, Gabe. So I'm excited to be here and talk everything Missouri, life, and everything Power Mizzou, man.
Yeah, this particular podcast is sponsored by James Carlton State Farm Insurance. But like, if you want to Venmo us extra money for being a guest, Clint, feel free, man. We take all donations, all sponsorships.
I'm going to start that will be my next job. I'm going to pay to be on podcasts moving forward, and maybe something will break. Maybe I'll get my own sponsorship someday. But shout out to State Farm and James Carlton.
Yeah, paying to be on a podcast seems like a terrible business plan, to be quite honest. So, all right. So, look, first things first here, the kind of the recent news for Mizzou fans. Toriano Pride, St. Louis kid, coming back from Clemson. Tell the Missouri fans kind of what you thought of Toriano coming out of high school a couple years ago, and what kind of player you think he has a chance to be. It didn't really. I mean, he played at Clemson, but the playing time wasn't really there to I think show everything he hoped to be able to.
Yeah, Toriano's a dog. I mean, and you want to talk about a good player. Part of what makes him special is he has every gift of a big-time defensive back. He's got the size, the length, the twitch, fluid hips, instinctive, bright as all get out, sees the field. So he's got every physical skill set, every mental skill set, but his personality and his leadership and the way kids are drawn to him, I think, is a big thing as well. And you talk about him playing early or not playing as much as, you might have thought. Well, he came in and he played like right out the gate. And and I don't want to get into any speculation and stuff, but I don't know if him and the defensive backs coach down there had the greatest relationship in the world. And I think that might have led to a little less playing time and a little less dominance than we might have expected. Because when we saw him early on, like, that kid stepped on as a true freshman and was making plays. And so what you're getting is a college-ready, playing in the ACC, but he was playing at Clemson, SEC ready, attitude ready, mentally prepared, physically gifted kid who can step in. And when you're losing some high caliber players in the secondary, it's not often that you can say, you know what, we got these pretty good coming in. And yeah, maybe a drop off at some time, but Tori is as high as it gets. And if it all works out and stays healthy and, gets in his groove, because when he gets hot, he's hot. He's got a chance to be very good. And Missouri picked up a big one. And we had a feeling this might come for a while now, Gabe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I want to ask you about. And look, you're about to be in a position where, I don't know, you can say whatever you want, probably not get in trouble for it, right? But the transfer portal is so interesting because, Toriano enters it with a do not contact tag. However it happens, he knew where he was going. You see that all the time. There's a kid that hit the portal from Florida this morning. He's getting a bunch of offers, but everybody thinks this is a foregone conclusion. He's going to Oklahoma. So kind of explain how this portal stuff before they're actually in the portal tends to work from your knowledge of it.
Yeah. Kind of like, I guess, NIL works. It's not being offered, but it's being offered. There's a lot of back channels here. Because I'll have kids who reach out to me and they're like, yo, I'm about to hit the portal. What can we start? And I'm like, when I was with Rivals through tomorrow, I was like, I can't touch that, dude. I was like, I don't want to get in trouble with tampering. I'm not getting involved in that. But there are people who can get involved. There are people who don't have to follow a certain set of rules. And there's also high school coaches. Toriano has a great relationship with his high school coaches, great relationship with Carl Reed, people who have coached him throughout his career because he played for Reed at one point as well. And so before he ended up at East St. Louis. And so these college coaches are talking to, coaches all the time. And so if I want to go into the transfer portal and I'm a name guy, I'm a money guy, some of these kids have agents, so they can reach out to them and they'll start floating them around. But they can also reach out to their coaches because right now coaches are on the road. Coaches are doing in-home visits. I can tell my buddy, when I was in St. Louis, I was talking with kids and Toriano as a transfer came up among other names. And we had talked about that, Gabe. We kind of saw this coming. But if I'm committed to Ohio State and my buddy's saying, yo, he's about to hit the portal, or Toriano has friends, Luther Burden at Missouri, being like, yo, let's line something up. Luther can talk to his friend. So there's a lot of back channels and a lot of ways around it.
Right. That's the thing. None of this is technically you can't tell a kid, no, don't talk to your friend. And then, hey, your friend just happens to know a college coach or play for a college coach. That's not technically illegal. And literally, Clint, there's not a program in the country that doesn't do these things. It's like you don't sue somebody because as soon as you sue somebody, they get to go through your closet in court, right? Nobody's turning anybody in for tampering because they're all doing it.
Correct. And if they're not doing it, they're on the hot seat and their program is becoming less relevant. I mean, all of a sudden, Dabo's taking transfer kids. He was never going to do that before. You can stand by your principles. I mean, Gundy at Oklahoma State trashed NIL to their booster club going into the season. After the season, midway through the season, I think he kind of saw the light because they get him in an interview and they start the question should we be putting money towards facilities? And he stops the girl who's asking the question and says, let me just finish the question for you. Don't put the money into the facilities, put it in the NIL. Kids used to care about flashy things. They care about NIL now. So it's I don't know before I got on that tangent where we were going. But there's just What were we? What were we? Transfer portal still?
Yeah, we were initially talking about tampering and things
tampering.
like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. And I said all along, the whole reason you're getting anonymous comments about the whole Michigan sign stealing thing is because nobody wants their dirty laundry aired, right? And as soon as you open that can of worms is open on you, and you become a target. And even if you try to be the cleanest of the clean, you're going to accidentally do something, because there are so many rules. There's so many rules that people don't even know about. So everybody's got something. Even the Pope's got something on him when it comes to college football recruiting. And I think that is why you don't, or you very rarely see somebody call somebody out for tampering. And if they do, it's probably a knee-jerk reaction that they end up regretting.
Right. So you mentioned, this one's been kind of rumored for a little while, and we've talked before. And for those people who might be watching who don't know, one of the reasons Missouri has sometimes had trouble keeping all these St. Louis kids at home and playing together is because of Clint's dad. Spent a lot of time recruiting that city and getting some of them to go to places like Wisconsin and Nebraska and others. But you've told me this is something you and your dad used to talk about, like, hey, if Missouri could ever actually get most of these kids, and I don't think you're ever going to get all of them, that's unrealistic. Yeah. But get a lot of these kids to stay home, it could really turn a corner for the program. So where I want to start with this is Luther Burden that kid who, like, Missouri fans have been waiting for forever? Like, Jeremy Macklin came here and was great, but it didn't quite have this everybody in St. Louis wants to come effect. Luther was the kid that I remember covering one of his high school games, and even the other players were kind of in awe of him. And now he's come to Missouri and he's fulfilled that. Like, he's what everybody thought he was going to be. So is that the impetus for, okay, doors are open here?
The Luther Burden effect is real. Like, Luther Burden is different. And he's a different type of player with a different type of mindset, with a different type of respect. People respect Luther Burden, and he goes about his business the right way. And he's very calculated, and he's got a vision, and he's got a goal. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that will stop Luther Burden from achieving his plan, his goal. And so I remember the first time that I met Luther as a freshman in high school. Back when I was scouting, I'd go to the high schools. I sit down with Brandon Gregory, and I was like, I heard there's a pretty good freshman here. He's like, yeah, he kind of thinks he's a hooper right now. But he's like, Clint, and like, he got passionate when talking about it. He's like, this kid is different. He's like, it's in his eyes. You see it in him. When the ball is in his hands, things happen. People are better because of him. And he walks him in, and Luther is this skinny, tall, kind of quiet, extremely respectful, nice kid. And I was like, so this is him. And I trust Brandon Gregory. He's like, Clint, I'm telling you, this is him. And I was like, okay. And so we start watching film. We start talking about him. I start kind of evaluating him. And I was like, based off what and how passionate Coach Gregory was talking about it when he was at Cardinal Ritter, Gregory's over at East St. Louis now. I had a very good feeling at a very young age. And then you hear the background of him being, he was invited to USA basketball tryouts. And so he's there with all these 5-star, 4-star NBA 6'8" kids, and you got 5'11", 6-foot Luther Burden at the time. Like, he held his own, but I think he looked around and he's like, these guys are different, and he could compete with them. But, when you're talking NBA and long term, I think he finally realized, the football field's where it's at for me. Yeah. And every time he touched the ball, and there's a reason he's touchdown Luther, is because when he touches the ball, he's literally running for his life, running for his dream, running for everybody in his community. I swear to God, I think he takes all of that weight on his shoulders. And that's why he has so much respect from the area. So a lot of these guys come in, they have the high expectations, number one player, and they kind of fold under it. And especially if things don't go as smooth as, like, he had a good freshman year, but he wasn't the dude right away.
Right.
You know, Lovett was, and so I think he's maybe struggled with that at times. I don't know that. You know, I've heard that. But then when given the opportunity to be the man, and then all of a sudden you start riding that success at Missouri, then eyes are on Missouri, and then eyes are seeing what the guy that they grew up knowing was the future to them, knowing was the guy who he's a kid who everybody has always wanted to follow. And so now with Missouri having the success, with them having the NIL means, with Luther being that dude, literally living up to the hype, very few do that, especially guys who have so much on their plates. And I think that other people have looked at it and said, Luther decided, he said, screw everything else. That's where I'm going. Luther decided, and when he made that decision, and it worked out, and Missouri football started playing, and everybody else around him was better, I think kids started saying, like, this is where I can see myself now. And that was never the case. That was never. Missouri get one or two,
I've always said
never.
I've always said very simply, the reason Missouri has struggled in state is that it has not been viewed as cool to go to Missouri.
No.
Like, I don't know a simpler way to put it. That's the way it's been.
It was, you went there because you didn't have the big time offer before, you know?
Mm.
And like, even if you're going to an Oklahoma State or something, it was, at least you're not going to Missouri. And,
Somewhere different.
And
yeah.
Exactly. And so, like, and when you talk about me and my dad, and he recruited for a long time, I mean, didn't Jeff George go to Missouri at some point?
No, Jeff George went to Illinois.
Well, my dad recruited him to Illinois, but did he start out at Missouri?
Not to my knowledge, but you're way before my time.
Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, Terrell Fletcher, Jamar Fletcher, the first round defense line. I mean, these are Thorpe Award winners, first round draft picks. Mm-hmm. And they were going to Wisconsin. They were going to Illinois when my dad was Illinois. They were going to Nebraska. And, you know, my dad was, when Pinkel got the job, they obviously made a phenomenal choice, but my dad was a finalist for the job at that time. And it was because of his ability. And they thought the same thing. You know, if we can keep the home talent home, we're going to win. If we would have just kept the guys that my dad took to Wisconsin home, they would have had a chance. And so I finally think that it is no longer, I'm going to Missouri because I don't have a big program to go to. I think Toriano's a great example. Leaving Clemson to go to Missouri, that's unheard of a few years ago. And that started with Luther. And I feel like this is going to have a tsunami effect.
All right. So, look, I already know what the response is going to be from people watching this. So, if all that's true, they're not getting Ryan Wingo. They're not getting Jeremiah McClellan. Why? Why is that a delayed effect you're talking about? Because look, Luther's been here 2 years. He's only got one more year. So I'm playing devil's advocate here because I know what people are going to say when they hear this. But he's talking about all this. But why didn't we see it happen this year?
I think we did to a certain extent. A guy like Williams Nwaneri doesn't stay back if there isn't the success and the NIL stuff in play, and that's another reason why you're going to see some of these guys go elsewhere. Wingo, I think Wingo wants to be in Missouri, to be honest. I'm not so sure it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And
at least not this year.
Yeah. I could see him ending up in Missouri eventually. Right. But there's other things at play there. And he ended up at Texas. And they wouldn't have even been in the running if it weren't for the success, Luther Burden, and the NIL. So I think the fact that they were even the school he was going to up until 36 hours before, maybe, I think that says a lot. Missouri's not even in the conversation in the past. Jeremiah McClellan's a different thing. You know, I think part of Jeremiah's deal at first was, I can go to Ohio State, where every single receiver goes to the NFL. I know I'm going to get developed. I don't want to stay right down the street. I think being too close to home is a big thing for him. And then other opportunities are good opportunities. And so,
right.
Same thing with Jeremiah. He wouldn't even consider Missouri if what is going on right now wasn't there. So you're not going to just overnight flip something that has gone on for 2-3 decades, my entire life, but it is turning. There is it's cool to stay home now. You see Luther Burden doing his pizza ads. You see Luther Burden chips. Why wouldn't you want to be part of that? I was at that game, Gabe. Missouri games have never been cool like that in the past. It's different now. Missouri walks in and Coach Drink talking SHIT. That's freaking awesome. There's a swagger.
I understand you have an infant. You're used to spelling things. Say the word on this podcast. We don't.
He's talking shit. I mean, he's on that show the other day, and they're talking about playing Ohio State, and he's he picks up the phone. He's like, Connor Stallions, hold up. I got to call Connor Stallions. And I'm like, he's out there roasting fools. And I was like, that is a swagger that Missouri hasn't had. And you have to have that swagger. And it's a swagger that Coach Drink hasn't necessarily had,
Right. Well, he didn't have the wins to back, and now he's got some wins too. So all right, big picture, and look, there could be more to come in this portal season. We don't know. There are names that float out there, but some of them aren't even in the portal, may never go in the portal. So we're not sure what's going to happen. But they've gone 10-2. They're playing in the Cotton Bowl, actually favored over Ohio State at this point. We're talking about pride coming back, all these things. From somebody who's watched Missouri football or paid attention from a distance for a long time, what does he have to do because like I said, Luther's got one more year left. Brady Cook's got one more year, and then they got to go find a quarterback, whether that guy's on their roster or not. But point being, to make this pay off, to make this not a 1 or 2 year quick little flash in the pan, what do they have to do?
I'll tell you this right now, Gabe. They overachieved this year. When I was on that field pregame, I looked at the roster, and keep in mind, my one, year-long experience in the SEC was when my dad was at LSU in 2019. Mm-hmm. And when I got down there, and I was scouting at the time, and
so you thought the greatest team potentially in college football history. So comparing them to literally anyone is not fair.
It is not. But this is in spring ball before the season started, when my dad literally goes, "Yo, Joe Burrow's going to win the Heisman." I'm like, Joe Burrow couldn't hit the side of a barn last year. And he's like, dude, you have no idea. But these guys walk on the field the first time, and I'm looking at them in awe. I was like, these guys look different. And then I went to a lot of games that year. I was at Alabama on the sidelines for Florida LSU, these big games. And those teams look different. When I got on that Missouri sideline, they look good. And they look good in certain spots. But they didn't look like those teams. And so for them to achieve what they've achieved thus far is because of, I'm going to say it, great coaching, great development, great schematics. So they've overachieved right now. Now, the hard thing, and I said this to Illinois fans last year, Brett Bielema won a year too early. He overachieved. He was ahead of schedule. So anything less than better than what they did last year when they lost 3 first-round draft picks, was going to be a failure. So I don't think you expect 10-2, 12-0 right away. But what you're going to see is as this talent catches up to the program that they have built, that they have developed, Brady Cook wasn't Brady Cook until this year. Luther Burden was good. Mookie Cooper was Mookie Cooper, but so they had, big players coming from the portal. They have played incredibly well, technically sound, well coached. Kirby Moore is a magician. He is a freaking good offensive coordinator. The defensive coordinator, what's his name? Why am I going blank? Yeah. Blake Baker, phenomenal coach. That dude's got juice. And I think there was the perfect kind of setup where Kirby's in calling the plays. So Drink has that off his plate. Blake's a guy who he trusts, lets him do his own thing, doesn't micromanage. And Drink was able to be the head coach, the visionary, and do all the things he needed to do as a head coach, and all the pieces came together. So I do not think this is a flash in the pan. Will you have a year where it's maybe not 9 or better? Yeah, it's going to happen. Sure. It's the SEC. Alabama and LSU have that happen. But what I think this is the beginning of something special, because the talent's only getting better. The talent's only getting better. Now, you got to retain players. People have to stay healthy. The ball has to bounce your way. But once the ball starts bouncing your way, it seems to bounce your way a little more often. And that is what I see for Missouri football going forward. I think this is the start of something special. The big thing is keep the Missouri kids home, at least be in the conversation. Because if you're not in the conversation, other big-time kids from the area aren't going to want to be in the conversation either. If Jeremiah McClellan, Ryan Wingo aren't considering Missouri, the other kids are like, well, why would I consider Missouri if the best aren't? But now they are. So I think they're going to start winning those in-state battles. They have a great NIL program in place. I don't think this is a flash in the pan. Like I said, there's going to be a down year every now and then. Things have to, continue trending in the right direction. I think a win against Ohio State, I don't care if Kyle McCord is gone and people are sitting out. That's a blue blood. And if you go and beat a blue blood in a historic bowl game that everybody's going to be watching, that's going to have a huge audience. I think you can say this program's back. And now, do they stay hungry is the question.
Right. I'm not the greatest citizen as far as current events go, so I don't know the next time Columbia is electing a mayor. But that was Clint's campaign speech. He's kicked it off there with that. So, look, in all seriousness, it's been a cool year. I've gotten to know you a lot better. Missouri fans have gotten to see you a lot more because Wingo and McClellan and all these guys, all this talent, and you've had a connection. So, I know we're going to have a lot of people watching this that want to know, what's coming up? Where do they make sure? Are you still going to talk shit with them on Twitter? Where are they going to find you coming up?
Man, I tell you what, Missouri's become my Twitter fam. Those are my people. If I have nobody to talk to, I know I have them to talk to. You talk about people who have my back when something goes bad to me, man. That's real family right there. So yeah, I'm still gonna be chopping it up.
Them and Oklahoma fans they're your two biggest fan bases.
Yeah, Oklahoma. They absolutely love me. Before I only had Wisconsin. Now I got Missouri and Wisconsin to defend me from Oklahoma fans. And it has been a really cool year. I've obviously, and it's because of the fan base and my interaction with them that I paid such close attention to Missouri. Developed such a great relationship with you, Gabe. This has been a fun year, man. It's been really cool.
It's been good.
And it's been fun to not be a part of it, but feel like I'm a part of it,
right.
And I was at least along for the ride. And so yeah, I'm still gonna be chopping it up with them. I don't know what my next move is. I've got a lot of things cooking. So I'm gonna sit back, enjoy being a dad. I went to my son's first music class yesterday. And I felt like a bad dad because I didn't know the songs, but I was there, and that felt good.
Hey, that's the battle is just being there, man.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna enjoy that for a couple of weeks, but I'm working on some things, and I'll stay in touch, Missouri fans. Maybe you'll see more of me. Who knows?
All right, good deal, man. Clint, parting shots, man. And anything that you want to say that you didn't have a chance to say here?
It's all love. What goes around comes around in the end. Love everybody. And go Power Mizzou, go Rivals.
All right, guys. That was Clint Cosgrove. Spent about half hour with me earlier this afternoon. Look, I know you guys in Clint have kind of had this thing going this year. Clint's obviously had a lot of good news for you. And so wanted to make sure that before he goes on and does whatever's next for him, that you guys had a chance to hear from him. Appreciate Clint doing that with us. Appreciate Drew and Jarod for taking some time out, although I write their checks. They don't really have a choice. Clint had a choice and still came on. So podcast rankings, Clint won, Jarod and Drew tied for second. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Had about 250 people on here tonight, which is pretty good for a Thursday night. If you hung with us to the end of the show, first of all, congratulations. You listened to a lot of talk from the four of us. So thank you. Do me a favor, hit like, comment, subscribe to the channel. You'll get notifications when we go live. We're going to be going live a lot here. Portal season, bowl season, all that. If you're listening on the podcast, share it on social media. Leave a nice comment. Regardless of what you do, check out our friend James Carlton at carltoninsurance.net. Give him a call at 314-961-4800. We will have a chamber in the morning. We'll head to Lawrence on Saturday, and we'll talk to you guys next time.